Welcome, everybody. I've got Scott Church here, and we are celebrating 20 years of Category 1 games. Scott, you launched this store in November 2004. What else launched in 2004? We had like Gmail, Brad's Dolls,
Yeah,
Shrek movie,
MySpace was big, Facebook.
MySpace. Would I have been in your top eight? That's the real question here.
That's right. Yeah,
Um,
and could you get onto the Facebook when it was originally launched? Because you weren't in the right college at the time, you know?
Right. Neither of us were at Harvard in 2004. Um, so what we want to do today is just sort of reflect back on the last 20 years, kind of celebrate Category 1 games for 20 years. There might be some sales that you might be having that you want to just throw out there, celebrate this. But this is just, I think, a cool opportunity to reflect back on sort of the card market and this space over the last 20 years. What have we seen? What have been the highlights, the lowlights, the surprises, the things that frankly weren't really surprises, but they were shocking at the time. And so that's kind of what we hope to accomplish here, Scott. But can you take us to 2004? Why did you start selling cards online? I feel like Jeff Bezos, right, sitting there like, I'm going to sell books online. Like, why sell cards online in 2004?
Yeah, so it was an interesting time. The market was in an interesting space because Decipher was basically they lost the Star Wars license. They still had Star Trek and Lord of the Rings. Magic was in a downward spot from about 2004 and on, and so Magic wasn't doing very well. But games like WWE Raw Deal were. Lord of the Rings was really strong. Hero Clicks was doing really well. Verse System was about to break out on the market, and then you had kind of the second, third tier games like Full Metal Alchemist was had a popular base at the time, and we're about to get into the World of Warcraft era, which was
Mm,
a huge boost to the trading card market when that game launched with the loot cards, and those were huge for in-game play, where you could get these scratch-off cards that would give you a code to put into your online play. And so it opened up a whole new realm of gamers coming in and buying cards that were not normal hobby gamers with World of Warcraft. But yeah, so 2004 was an interesting space. The Star Wars CCG is what I was mainly into uh, pre Decipher losing the license, and I was selling cards for it on eBay. And my friend Michael Barr said you should stop just selling sets. You should look at selling singles. That's what I'm doing. He was in law school at the time, and he had a site on eBay or a store on eBay called Outer Rim Trading Post or Outer Rim Trading
okay.
Company. And he was selling singles. He's like, "This is where the money's at. I'm about to graduate law school. You should kind of take my place." And so I we got this site, we started going with it, and it was really basic at first, and we get hacked a lot. That was a time where internet security wasn't that well for websites. So, sometimes I go to bed at night and I'd wake up and the site had a whole new design layout. And so I'd have to, call someone that could help, a coder at the time, which not many people knew code, and the back ends were really rough. You had to buy a cart, and a cart would then connect you to somewhere to have either a credit card payment or PayPal go through as payment. And so carts were actually really expensive at the time with website design. And that's actually what really mattered is who was your cart, and then how did you build off of that. I mean, just random stuff like that you wouldn't even think about today with how great website design is today. But at
So
that time it was so archaic.
yeah, it's interesting now, obviously, with the advantage of hindsight of looking and saying, well, of course, Magic is the clear winner, and everyone should have been buying Black Lotuses in 1996 and like, or even 2004, right? Like, of course, this was the game that was going to win. But if you actually think back to 2004 and Magic having this slump, like Wizards wasn't always like company number one, right? Like, Decipher was actually, I think, in that slot for you know, or very close to that slot, let's say. And there's like lots of other kind of competitors as well. And now the market has narrowed quite a bit. And basically, have like you do just have Wizards and maybe Fantasy Flight and maybe a few other kind of like indie publishers, like with the Flesh and Blood. I don't remember who publishes Flesh and Blood, but and so it's like really interesting to think of this like vibrant marketplace that's exciting. And I think we're living in obviously 2004, 2024 now, and even with new games coming out, it doesn't really feel that vibrant and exciting. And Star Wars Unlimited, like I don't actually think it's bringing in that many like random people. In the same way, like WoW TCG spawned Hearthstone eventually, which is literally just a money machine for Blizzard to just like
Yeah,
collect people's money. But I think you did have this crossover of like video game people kind of venturing in with versus system. You have more comic book people kind of like, I know it was overpowered before that, but it was like kind of a diverse and exciting second wave of stuff that I don't think really lasted very long. It lasted maybe like 4 years ish, right
right.
before the recession. I think the recession just killed a lot of hobby stuff, and then Magic kind of assumed the throne with Pokemon number two.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I mean, think about like Decipher's Star Wars stuff was dirt cheap at that time too in 2004. So boxes of Reflections 1 were like $15-20 a box. So think about what they cost now. A box of Reflections 3 was about $100 to $120 versus what are they, 3,000 plus now a box. So you could still find things fairly cheap. And it made it so for me, I was buying and selling just for a small profit, basically to continue to fuel my hobby, not because I was looking to do this as a business and make a ton of money and grow it. I was more, hey, I'm also a gamer. I want to help provide cards for other gamers for games that are hard to find. And I can get stock for it fairly easily, and so let me turn that around for people and just make a slight profit or a small profit.
I think
Where what's that?
I was gonna say there's always this tension that exists where like people hate resellers because not hate, but like many people hate on them because they think that like, oh, there's a markup there, but there's also this providing a liquidity to the market, which is so necessary. Like your site is what everybody benchmarks their prices and all these buy sell groups on, and like you need to have those benchmark prices. Everyone's just like guessing, right? Of like,
Right.
for $20, trust me, bro. So
Well,
it's
I mean, I'm looking. I'm a big fan of the Marvel trading card series, and if you look for pricing on that, people will post in these groups all the time on Facebook. How much does this card cost? What is this worth? And people are go to eBay, go to eBay. There's no guide there. There's no website that's setting a price, and for people to kind of follow is like a guide for it. And I think that's like a missed opportunity within that Marvel card space. And I look at my site, and that's what we're doing, but a lot of people, like you said, will kind of hate on, oh, it's retail, there's a markup. But what I don't think people understand is the convenience factor of having one site that has everything that you're looking for. And it's constantly bringing in stock to make sure things are in stock for you and other people to be able to purchase and to be also get it to people all around the world so they can enjoy it. I, I think about the convenience thing a lot recently. When you go to a gas station, you're paying more than if you went to a grocery store or just ordered it on Amazon. But there's a convenience of stopping in, getting it right there and then, and being able to find, a decent amount of stuff you need all in one place versus taking the time, going into a grocery store, spending the time there, shopping and waiting to leave. So I think the convenience factor is something that you have to take into equation with pricing on something like this. And so I don't know if people really factor that in as much of, hey, I can pick up 80 cards that I need all in one spot versus trying to do one person here on Facebook and I'm going to buy this on eBay and I'm going to buy this over here. And I hope they all come in and this person knows how to actually pack it. And this person says near mint, but it's not actually near mint because they have no idea how to grade. And so what we did is we kind of put that all in one place and we created a convenience within this hobby and the ability to pick up stuff that otherwise is hard to find. So I had someone post the other day on an order like, hey, hope you guys get a Death Star 2 Endor Coruscant restock here soon. And I'm like, hey, me too. We do rely a lot on our buy lists and buying collections to restock, but that's something we're always doing. And that eBay seller might have it at a discounted price because they just found this box of cards in their back of their closet and they want to get rid of it, but they're not going to continually restock and churn through it and make sure those communities are fed. And that's what we're looking to do is feed the communities, keep the gamers happy. We're not charging X times more. You see sellers like that on eBay where they might have a hard to find card and they're like, well, no one else has it, so I'm going to charge 5 times what it probably is
yeah.
valued at. I've never taken that viewpoint on it. I wanted to be able to like keep these communities happy and being able to enjoy their hobbies, and that's really what we're trying to do.
Well, I think it's both like high velocity sales are important, like the movement of product from Matt's basement. Like it doesn't benefit anybody for me to have 400 sets of stuff and I'm just waiting till the right moment. Because even me as a seller, when I'm waiting for the right moment, everyone who is possibly interested in this stuff also stop moving around, it's causing static. The
Oh, sorry.
microphone. Just stay exactly still. But no, the point I was going to make is it doesn't benefit me even if I have 400 sets and by the time I'm like, okay, I'm ready to sell, but there's not 400 people that want it because people like couldn't find it. They got discouraged. They moved on to one of the other bajillion games or hobbies or ways to spend your money in this world. So I think having that movement and that marketplace is really, really important. That's why I do these market updates. I don't do these market updates because I want prices to be high or want prices to be low. I do it just so people can have information and there can be an active marketplace. My background is I'm an economist. I do market stuff all day. And the card market is like fascinating to me because it's also influenced by a small number of people. But there's like this broader, quiet community that's also buying into it. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse and ask you the fun questions.
No, you're good. That's totally you're spot on. I mean, it is interesting to kind of see how these markets work. And I think there's a bigger demographic out there than most people realize for these markets because we often think of the players as the ones in the Facebook groups, but there's a whole group of collectors that you might not ever see that are really into these. And that's a market that a lot of people don't take into a factor because they're the quiet collectors that are making an impact.
Yeah, I mean, as well, like I think information flow in all of this is important, and where you don't have transparency, you don't have confidence, where people can go and see, hey, this sold for $10, I got it for $9 or $11. That seems reasonable. But if I find out that I paid $100 and it is regularly selling for 10, but I couldn't see that because it's only happening in private chats, then like
Right.
that feels crappy, right? And you feel like
Yeah.
burned by the hobby and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna turn I didn't I kind of got ripped off. I don't like this anymore. People aren't friendly. And so, but I did prepare some fun questions for you,
Yeah,
Scott.
let's do it.
So we went over what was happening 20 years ago, Shrek 2, actually one of the greatest movies of all time. So you were competing with Shrek 2 for viewers, right? But I kind of want to ask, like, over the last 20 years, what were kind of the highlights and the lowlights? What was sort of the moment where you're like, this has been, I'm so happy I did this, and like this is, we're cruising here. And then what was kind of a moment of maybe doubt, that we were like, hey, is this going to work?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing was we had these early designs for our site, and maybe we could pull up those slides and kind
Oh
of
yeah, we
go
got
through
some
that.
early internet. The 2004 is a funny time.
So
The Wayback Machine did not pull the images I see, but
yeah, so it didn't pull the images, but this was the original layout, and we carried Verse, Wars, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. This was our next design, and this is really where things were kind of taking off for us and doing well. So Lord of the Rings was so much fun. Once the Verse system came out, I was playing Verse system very heavily at the time and just loved it. The competition in it, the people who I was meeting, the pre-release events, the PDQs, like all this fun stuff. It was really a fun time. Lord of the Rings was doing really well at the time. And then about 2008, when the market crash happened, it was a rough time, and I switched website companies to, if you guys remember, Deck Tech, that was a company. The web design person behind that, I hired to do my website, and he didn't want to do it on the Category 1 games build. He wanted to do it on his own build and change it to Category 1 with a 1 instead. And so there's no SEO or like really any images I can pull up of that, but the site was really kind of an outdated build at the time, and we just saw our sales tank and the recession hit, and it was like just a rough time in general for people. So basically what we do in about 2 weeks in sales today is about what we did for 2009 2010 in sales. I mean, it was just such a low point in the hobby. I remember I had Lord of the Rings singles at my house that local players could come over and just buy for a quarter. I was selling any rare I had in this box for a quarter just to like move through them. Lord of the Rings was just dead, completely dead at that time. And so about 2011, end of 2011, we switched website companies to one called Crystal Commerce, and that's who we're still with today. And we came out with this new design, and this was the look of it. And I really liked this. We were very Star Wars centric. And as soon as we switched to this, January of 2012 is when this design launched, and it just shot our sales up. We did really well. And at that time, I was doing everything out of my basement of my house, and we had a water pipe burst and damaged so many of our Star Wars inventory. It just destroyed so much of it. And it was a huge downturn for me where I was like, man, so much of my inventory is just toast. How do I recover? How do I keep selling? And luckily, the community was great. We continued to do buy lists and collection buys, and we were able to turn a lot of get new inventory in and keep going. And so that was a big thing. We grew the Star Wars inventory up until the point where in 2016 we sold our inventory of Star Wars to the Star Wars Players Committee, and they put it into their store. And at that time, I didn't know what Category 1 games should really do moving forward. And if you have a site that's kind of built around a Star Wars base, and you sell your Star Wars inventory off, that leads you kind of figuring out what to do. And that's where we have our kind of current layout and design now. It's more based around multiple games. And so we got into Magic really heavily. That's around when Amonkhet and Modern Masters 3 came out. And that was dumb. That wasn't where our bread and butter at. What I know are out of print games. And so I leaned heavily into that. I think we're over 160, 180 games right now on the site, something like that. And so we've just grown our out of print game inventory. I've got a whole box here of out of print games that I'm adding: Monster Ranchers, Neopets, Adventure Time,
I did not
Warlord.
remember Monster Rancher. I used to love Monster Rancher too. I was obsessed with that game. I'd go put you put the CD-ROM and the PlayStation to get a different monster. I was obsessed with that game for like
That's awesome.
18 months.
So I mean that's kind of where the future is for us, is continuing to add these older games on and bring in more inventory for it. We're kind of going through all of our back shelving right now that we haven't touched in years, and pulling out all these games and just adding them to the site. We really want to get everything on, and then we're going to do a full blitz of adding new inventory for the games we have on once we kind of get everything established that we have in back. And so that's kind of what we're doing. November of this year, so we're in the middle of November while we're filming this, and by the time this goes up, it'll probably be close to Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to start a sale on November 23rd, Saturday, and we're going to go through the end of Cyber Monday, which is December 2nd this year. And this will be our biggest sale. It's our 20th anniversary celebration sale. I'm really excited for it. And it's going to be the biggest one we've ever had. I think people will really love this. You know, if you got games you've been waiting to pick up items for, it's a great time to do it. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Absolutely. Looking at this, so I'll definitely be shopping stuff in the sale, but looking at this page makes me wish I put a game up of, did this card lose value or gain value? This image is from what, 2009? No, or
That's about 2012.
2012. I'm just looking at this ATST dual cannon, and like it's worth less than like, it's like, wow, I wish I could, $14 for this feels like a lot.
Yeah.
And then like the Gilgalad is, it's just like what has actually gone up and down. It feels like all the Lord of the Rings stuff at that point was like, pennies on the dollar, and now, Darth Maul went up and down. So it's just kind of interesting to compare these prices from at that point. I guess that was 12 years ago or so, but
right.
All right. So highlight, what was kind of the highlight though? How was COVID for you guys? I mean, you guys, did things just go kind of bonkers during COVID?
Oh man, we saw our inventory just shrink so much during COVID. It was really insane to see how much COVID impacted us. And we were just trying to get product anywhere we could. We went from having, we get collection offers probably like multiple times a week. And during COVID, we got no collection offers. Everything dried up that was looking to sell. People were buying. So we were just turning as much as we could during that time. We also added a lot of new games to the site during that time. A lot of people, their lives slowed down, and they got, they had a break basically from a lot of things happening in life. For me, it was opposite. It sped up, and it's been sped up ever since. And I haven't had that break. So it's kind of like a weird thing where a lot of people will talk about like, oh, COVID was nice because I didn't have anything going on. And for me, I was like, what? Like I was nonstop busy. We're just packing up orders and shipping them out like every day. And so it was a great time. My oldest son that has worked for me, he started working for me during COVID. He basically got out of school, in March of that 2020, and he was like, "Well, I'm home. Might as well start learning the business." And so he started working with me. We moved from a home office that I'm at right now into our office space that we have in our city, Lehigh, Utah, and we've since opened up a second office space there. So we've seen really a lot of growth since that time, and people have come in and out of the hobby. You see people right now; it's a different market right now. People are looking to sell more than buy in a lot of situations, or people that overbought during COVID are looking to get out of it. And so you're seeing like we've cut back on our buying right now just because it's interesting space in the market. And you see the bigger sellers do this. You'll see like Star City Games will pull down their dual lists, or not dual lists, their dual lands for Magic, or some of the bigger Power 9 cards for Magic when they're like, the market's unsteady, we're going to hold off on buying. To a certain degree, we're still buying, but we're holding off a little bit to kind of see how the market resets, and then we'll kind of move forward. And same thing with pricing. We'll have this big sale, and then next year we'll look at where our pricing is at. Where do we have too much inventory? Where do we have too little? And we'll adjust accordingly. This industry is always a little bit in flux. Out of print games are a little more steady than current games, but we'll have to adjust and look at it from there.
Do you know what I like about out of print stuff besides the nostalgia punch? Obviously, that's always powerful, but I like that I know what it is. Like I know the start and the finish, right? And I can chart it out, and I can either play with certain constraints or I can collect with certain constraints or the full thing. But I've kind of gotten into Star Wars Unlimited. We were talking about this before the show, and I was just like, damn, there's already a new set out. Like, damn, like another whatever, $400 or $500, just like that. And you're on this like quarterly cadence that
Yeah.
can be so exhausting. And eventually you mature enough, like with Magic, where it's like, Bloom, but not Bloomberg, whatever the scary site. Duskhaven's a skip, the cute animal one. I kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
when it release, and you pick and choose. But like when a game is brand new, like Star Wars Unlimited, it's like I have to get the next set to keep up with the meta, or I'll be left behind. And Magic, it's like, yeah, pick and choose. But my point is, it is so freaking expensive in the long term. Like you are on the cardboard crack, if you will, for a long time, and you're just hooked every 3 months, sometimes 2 months. Special drops, and I just like knowing what's in front of me and what my goals are, and those goals might change or alter, but it just feels like I have that clarity. And I will say that it makes me sad sometimes to not have like new things to talk about, because you can only talk about the same old, you know. But it like I have a complete picture that I can map out, and that's comforting to me.
Right. Well, and I love games like Verse System Today or WWE Raw Deal, where a lot of these collectors they want to enjoy it still, and so they'll build 40 different decks. They'll put them in deck boxes, have them labeled with what type of deck they are, and then when friends come over, they have a group play together. They'll just do like a roulette of like randomly choose, and then they play those decks.
Well,
And
I think
I think
yeah,
that's fun.
it's almost more like thinking about these games as kind of like board games.
Right.
Like these are complete. Like this is you're playing Star Wars CCG. Your Premiere to Reflections to like these five things are the meta. Like those are
Yeah.
the best decks. That information's out there. And then there's tier A, tier B, tier C, and like you can know that maybe a tier C deck can surprise a tier A deck, whatever. But like in general, like you have the complete picture, and there's no real changing that information because it's existed for 20 years, and you're kind of like playing almost like a board game in that sense, where all the information is available in the box.
That's right. Yeah,
Versus
you
going
hit
to
it spot
the
on. I think you're spot on with that, Matt. I think that's an excellent analogy. It's like a finished product, and you have these players committees that add things here and there, can change cards with virtual cards, but for the most part, if you buy what is out there, you have everything you need.
So I have a few more questions here. I think what has been the most surprising thing for you over the last 20 years? I'll go first. My most surprising thing is that everyone lost their minds and went insane during COVID and bought all the things from their childhood. And as I say those words, I'm like, is that surprising? That's actually extremely common that people seek creature comforts during a uncertain time, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's very human. Okay, never mind. I understand that.
I have a 34-year-old brother-in-law that has 3 young kids, and he's just now has a bunch of expendable income, and he's buying a ton of Pokemon right now. So I'm actually going to a Pokemon card show with him later today because he's just loving his childhood Pokemon. So I think people do that. It's not so much that, it's that I think the most surprising thing to me is we still have these gaming groups where we're still gaining new people in them to pick up games that are 20 to 30 years old. Whether it's the kids of players, whether it's people that just love a property and find these older games, the internet has opened this up to everyone everywhere being able to have access to it in some way. And I love that. I saw someone post the other day like, "Hey, I played Star Trek as a kid. I'm getting back into it." Or if you played Star Wars Universe, you saw people that haven't been in a card shop in 20 years coming back into card shops to play Star Wars. And I love that aspect of it, of people enjoying their hobbies and things they're still doing, that they enjoyed as teenagers. I mean, you see that with the When We Were Young festival in Las Vegas the past few years, right? People love the things from their childhood, whether it be music, hobbies, games, movies. One of the best things as a parent is waiting till your kids get old enough to show them the movies that you loved. Like, when can I watch Dumb and Dumber with my kids? Like, that was like a fun thing. And then they kind of watch it like, yeah, that was funny. And I'm like, oh no, it's the best thing ever. Why don't you love this?
You don't understand how funny it is. They're like, okay, Dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's things like that. So I think it's just that I love seeing all these groups, and you have newer groups too. The Middle Earth group has been around forever, but they're more so recently putting out virtual cards. You have, oh, another big thing, games coming back, Overpower's coming back, Animation's coming back, like all these games coming back. Warlord, it's really cool to see where even all these years later, it's a renaissance of some of these older games getting a second life.
Imagination. That's another one that did not have on my like bingo card of returning. I think we're gonna do a whole separate video on that, the returning stuff and sort of the state of the very dynamic CCG market right now. But yeah, I think the power of nostalgia is always going to be a factor in a lot of this stuff. And I think one of the things I've noticed from sort of comments and videos and messages I've gotten from doing this channel is people are also like, yeah, I recognize that Star Trek CCG is super clunky and that the seed phase takes 3 hours, but I still like it. Like I recognize it for what it is. It is outdated and was designed in 1994. Don't come for me in the comments, right? Like we can acknowledge that like it maybe would be designed differently if it was designed in 2024. But like they're okay with that and they recognize kind of like the warts and all. They're like, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's mine. And that's more important that it's mine and my buddies and my whatever, my groups, than it is that it's perfect and we have some house rules to tweak it and make it streamlined or whatever. But I've just seen a lot of that. And like that kind of that's nice because will never really be yours, Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that is shared with 40 million people. And that's not to say it can't be personal, but it's like there's nothing special about like, yeah, I'm really into magic. I'm like, okay, yeah, you and I don't know, 10,000 other people in this town. Like, it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
And I guess I enjoy having niche hobbies, not to be like a hipster elitist or something here. I just enjoy having something that feels kind of personal, right? And the fact that we've been able to make this personal connection as well, Scott, I consider you a friend. For people that made it to 29 minutes of the video, Scott is a friend. This is not sponsored content, although winky face. But I think that being able to make these connections over these games and these hobbies has just been really great, and looking forward to 20 more years of Category One games and the next generation of Scott Church Jr. But do you have any kind of final thoughts as we wrap up here?
No, I appreciate it, Matt. Like, it's been great. Thank you for having me on your show quite a few times, and all you do for the gaming community as well. I mean, you had mentioned what's great about coming out of COVID, or what's exciting is all the people that came and started doing YouTube channels like yourself that have brought new life and interest to this hobby in this space. And you guys have done a great job with that as well. And you specifically doing these videos and really covering current things, past things, helping people get back into these games and hobbies they love. So appreciate you for all you've done for the community as well. So, and thank you everybody for supporting us for 20 years. We couldn't have done this without you and still enjoying those hobbies that you love. So thank you everybody.
Awesome. All right. Well, looking forward to the sale, and I appreciate the kind words, Scott. I sometimes wish I knew video editing better. It just like doesn't. People that complain like, "Oh, the image is blurry." I'm like, "Yeah, do you know how tedious video editing is, though? Have you kind of, like, it is not my skill set." And so, if anyone wants to do free editing, DM me. Kidding, but not really. But anyways, let's wrap there. Link to Scott's store and Scott's YouTube channel and stuff is in the video description. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll catch you guys later.